Welcome to the Solution Nation podcast. My name is Sean Snowday, and I'm the president of Solution Nation. Solution Nation is dedicated to providing a platform for investors to learn about Israel's most dynamic public and private companies. We interview lead venture capitalists, Wall Street analysts, investment bankers, and managers of incubators and accelerators. Today's guest is Hanan Schneider, and our topic is investing in Israeli plant-based food tech. Now, this podcast discusses the pros and cons of plant-based alternative proteins compared to cell-cultivated protein replacements. Issues discussed include what is the shelf life of plant-based proteins, and what does clean labeling mean, and what is the significance? Please remember that all content provided on the Solution Nation podcast and website is for educational purposes only. Nothing shall be construed as investment advice. Investment decisions shall not be made based on information, written, verbal, or otherwise, posted or spoken on Solution Nation. Conduct your own research or consult with your own investment advisors before making investment decisions. So here's my good friend, the host of the show, and the CEO of Solution Nation, David Wanatik.
Welcome to Solution Nation, everyone. My name is David Wanatik. I'm the CEO of the Solution Nation podcast series. I'd like to thank you for joining us. Today's going to be a very interesting session. The focus of the session is investing in Israeli plant-based food technologies. Speaking on this issue, pleased to introduce Hanan Schneider. Mr. Schneider is the Chief Executive Officer of Millennium Food Technology, Millennium Food Tech. He is an entrepreneur, CEO, and an experienced investor in startups. Over the past 2 years, Hanan founded, built, and managed the Food Tech Incubator in Kiryat Shmona, Israel, partnering with Tempo, Tenuva, R-Crowd, and the U.S. VC fund Finisterre. Hanan founded Indamed and managed companies such as Beta O2, Nidaloop, and more. He managed these companies from startup to market. In this context, Hanan raised significant investments from both the venture capital funds and strategic partners overseas. In addition, Hanan was a managing partner in the VC fund Agate. So, Hanan, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
So, just tell us a little bit about Millennium Food Tech, maybe assets under management and the stage of development of companies that you seek to invest in.
Okay, so Millennium Food Tech is basically a venture capital fund that I established about 2.5 years ago. As opposed to a lot of other venture capital funds, we stumbled into the world of first-time fund, first-time team when we wanted to raise the fund. So we went to a different direction and we IPO'd the funds. So we have a fund. Until today, we raised about $45 million. It is listed in the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, and we invest only in food tech. But for us, food tech is in a broader definition, meaning from post-harvest until the waste, including retail tech, including waste management, including packaging, shelf life, production, and of course, alternative protein, nutrition, etc. So our stage of investment, or maybe it's a good time to speak about the Israeli ecosystem a little bit. So the Israeli ecosystem in the food tech is amazing and is growing all the time. We just had last week the food tech conference, which was, great and many partners, companies, and VCs around the world came to join us in the conference, and it's growing in a great pace. So, but in Israel, we have a lot of incubator, as you mentioned in my introduction. I led the tender of the Fresh Start Incubator in Kiryat Shmona about 4.5 years ago. And so we have a lot of pre-seed and seed investors, but we don't have venture capital funds in Israel. We have only 2 that are dedicated to food tech, and food tech is it's something that has to have, I think, I wouldn't say smart, but I would say much more understanding of the food business in order to do investment in the food tech business because it involves regulation, it involves scale up, building facilities, go to market, etc. So, and we have in Israel only about two, maybe two and a half funds that are investing in Israel in the what I call post-technology phase. But we have a lot of companies that are coming to do pilots, big food companies such as Nestle, PepsiCo, and others that are coming and seeking technologies. And we have VCs in Israel, not in Israel, sorry, from outside of Israel, foreign VCs that are coming and investing. So we invest in the post-technology, pre-AA and above, and our ticket size is about 2 to 7. I hope that I didn't put more time on that. So,
that's okay. That's a very thorough answer. Before we get into plant-based technologies, maybe we can talk for a few moments about the importance of food technology in view of the world's shortage of food. There's something like 30 or 40 countries that are at the starvation line, and there's riots in Sri Lanka and maybe Egypt. So this is a very serious thing. It's not all because of the war in the Ukraine. There's a movement all over the world to disallow farmers from using nitrogen-based fertilizer and making their work much more difficult. There's protests in the Netherlands and elsewhere. So maybe you can amplify that.
Yeah, so it's a great point, David, and you got right into the point. So the population of the world are growing up and the resources are going down. In some way because of climate changes, in some way because of population building of more cities and more places, etc. Now, when you are looking at that and you need to feed the world, you are thinking about why should I put resources that are 11 times more in raising cattle instead of having something which is plant-based. Sorry. So this is why all the big food companies are looking for new technologies and new products that are trying to solve the issue of feeding the population. Now there is and taking that into the plant-based session that we would like to have is, that when Beyond Meat came up, basically they have invented the category. And now we are inventing inside the category, meaning when Beyond Meat came to the knowledge of the people, they came up and said, why should we use or consume plant-based products which are really not tasty and not look like a real meat? Because let's face it, we had plant-based opportunities even before Beyond Meat and before Impossible Food and others. Why didn't that, took more than 5 to 7% of the consumption? This is because Beyond Meat maybe was the first one who came up and said, we are targeting not the vegetarian and not the vegan, we are targeting the flexitarian, the ones who want to reduce the meat consumption and not to eliminate it altogether. So Beyond Meat came up and said, we are going to bring to the consumer a product that looks like meat, tastes like meat, and basically will give you the experience of meat. And they've invented, together with Impossible, they've invented the category of plant-based meat, which is similar to meat. Now the companies, and by the way, Israel, which is a very small market, has about $250 million consumption of plant-based meat last year in 2021. So we see that now the consumers are looking for that solutions, and that solutions are coming up and being more and more with nutrition values as opposed to the first product, and more basically similar to the meat that they are replacing.
Okay, so that's an interesting issue. Plant-based meat is acceptable to vegetarians, whereas a cell-cultivated protein is not because cells initially come from an animal. Is that right?
Yeah, this is right to the vegetarian and the vegetarian alike persons, who are about 5 to 7% of the world population. But I think that the plant-based and cultured meat-based substitutes are looking to get the flexitarians and not the vegan and not the vegetarian world. On the opposite side, they want to go to the mass market. And we believe that the mass market needs a better feeding solution than cattle. As I mentioned before, to breed a cattle costs about 11 times more to get a plant-based hamburger, for example.
Okay. Are plant-based meat alternatives more acceptable in terms of Jewish and Muslim law, kosher and halal? Or is the law the same for both plant and cultivated meat?
Being a religious guy, I never thought about this question. It's a good point, but I don't think so. Meaning, you see that people are looking at the issues of eating meat at the different angles. One angle, of course, is halal and kosher, but I think the bigger angle is why should we kill animals? Or the issue of climate issues, meaning if you take all the cattle around the world, this is the number one pollution of the world, of the climate. So people are concerned about pollution or climate issues. People are concerned about killing animals, and people are concerned about eating healthier. If you take all these issues, you see why people are trying to reduce their meat consumption and to have more and more plant-based consumption or cultured meat. I think that people are willing to accept or wants to accept cultured meat if you will show them that it's much better for them. So it gives you the ability to say it's a meat. We want to eat meat, some of them. On the other hand, I'm not killing animals and I'm not disrupting the earth climate.
So maybe you can take a few minutes and explain how one goes about producing a plant-based meat alternative.
So you mean how they produce that in terms of how to produce the patty, or what is the idea behind producing that?
Yeah, so starting off with the plant, how do you turn a plant into a meat alternative?
Okay, so you take the product. What you want to do is to have the same texture and taste as the meat. So you are trying to use materials that are natural materials, binders, colors, etc., that are natural in their essence, in order to establish the plant-based meat. Now you need to have protein, you need to have fibers, and you want to have all the amino acids and all the good things that the meat will give you, and not having the bad things such as cholesterol and others that the meat will bring you. Now, a lot of companies already done that. They are taking pea protein, or they're taking chickpea protein or other sources of protein. And we saw that many companies already succeeded in introducing to the market plant-based processed meat. What we don't see yet, we don't see the cut, meaning the premium product, the steaks, the things. Now, if you allow me to give you my personal view here, I think that the plant-based meat will take and will take the market of the processed meat, such as hamburgers, burgers, such as kebabs, such as other processed food, patties, etc. While the cultured meat will take the market of the premium product, the steaks, the cut, etc. This is in terms of cost effectiveness and in terms of what the consumer wants to see.
If you're trying to turn a plant into meat, though, to what extent do you grow the plant in the field versus the laboratory? Do you just start with the seed and grow the entire seed to the plant to the meat in the factory, or is some of that done in the field?
I think that most of the plant-based meat are based on the field growing, although we are not investing in technologies that are in the field, meaning in the ag tech business. I'm sure there are technologies, and we know that there are technologies that are trying to have more, for example, more protein in the chickpea or in the pea or in the other vegetables, and maybe to produce them from the seed side to have more amino acids, etc. This is one thing, but basically you want to grow it as costly as it can, and the most costly that you can is in the field. So if you are taking that to the greenhouses, you are missing a lot, meaning the cost of the plant-based meat will go higher. And this is the contrary that we want to do. We want to take the cost lower than the processed meat.
So how do you think the costs compare when you're looking at plant-based meat versus cell-cultured meat, cell-cultivated meat?
So cultivated meat today, the main cost that cultivated meat today is the growth factors that you use in order to extrapolate the cells and divide the cells, and at the end of the day, produce a steak or burger or something like that. Now, this cost will go down, but in my view, in the next 5 years, we will not see them going down as the cost of processed meat today. So in my view, and as I mentioned, I think that the plant-based meat will be very cost effective in the processed meat, such as burger, kebabs, and maybe chicken, etc., that are low cost by nature. And for the premium product like the ribeye steak or other cut, the cultured meat will be able to go there because it has the ability to get premium prices.
Okay. Which alternative meat is healthier for the consumer, plant-based meat or cell-cultivated protein?
This is a very, very good question, and I think the answer is it depends. It depends what you put in the plant-based and what you put in the cultured meat. So if you put in the plant-based meat highly processed highly processed ingredients, such that you see today in the Beyond Meat First burgers, I think that the cultured meat are better. But if you are taking or even the meat, sometimes it's better. But if you take the plant-based and as other companies like Savor It and others are trying to bring a clean label, maybe the future clean label plant-based meat that are coming only from natural product, etc., then they will be in a way more cleaner or more healthier than other product. As the same goes to the cultured meat, meaning if you will use in the cultured meat, if the cultured meat will have residuals that coming from bad ingredients or the growth factors, this will be not healthier and maybe they will not get approval in the regulatory pathways. But if you are using the processing way and to avoid anything but the real meat cells plus the scaffold, which will be from clean label plant-based, then you will have a much healthier product. I think that we will see in the future that the product will be healthier and less bad ingredients.
Okay. Were you also saying that the regulatory pathway may be easier for plant-based meat versus cell-cultivated
This
meat?
is, sorry to interrupt. That's for sure. But plant-based meat sometimes doesn't have an FDA route, while in the cultured meat they have to go through FDA route, and the FDA criteria are not in place right now. Meaning it's a process. It's still a process with the FDA in the United States and with EFSA in Europe to have the criteria, the test, etc., in order to approve a cultured meat. Only Singapore today has approved cultured meat. All other countries in the world doesn't have or didn't approve yet cultured meat. We think that the US will do that in 2023, towards the end of 2023, but it's still not happened.
Okay. And then capital intensity, I think you were saying that it's more capital intensive to open a factory that focuses on cell-cultivated meat. But the plant-based, you're saying, is grown in the field to a larger extent. So overall, what else can we say about capital intensity of the two alternatives?
So in the plant-based meat, basically you take off-the-shelf protein, off-the-shelf fibers, off-the-shelf other stuff. Maybe you have some kind of a technology. Today there are many brands, or I would say that the shelf of the supermarket is very crowded today. It's a red ocean, what we call. And I think so the capital intensity is not so high. In the cultured meat is the other way around. You need to build the real factory. The cost to produce, in my view, or upon some estimation, the cost to have about 18,000 tons a year factory will be more than $200 million to build the factory. It's a bioreactors, it's a lot of capex. This is why I think that the cultured meat will not be able to compete with the processed meat and chicken meat prices. It will be able to compete only with the premium products.
Mm-hmm. But theoretically, though, cell-cultivated meat is only dependent on a few cows. So theoretically, if there are only 10 cows left in the world, you could still produce cell-cultivated protein, whereas plant-based meat alternatives, you need farmers all over the world to continue growing those chickpeas. And if they can't afford the fertilizer and the harvest isn't good, or the price of the crops rises a great deal, then the cost of goods for a plant-based company is going to be higher.
That's a really good point. You are totally right. If the plant-based, to grow chickpea or pea will cost more, then for sure the product will cost more. Don't forget that the same will go to raising cattle, meaning if you are raising cattle by giving him it corn or do you feeding it with corn or with the peas or other kind of crops, then if the crops will have a more cost, of course the meat will cost more. That's true. I think that it will take more than 10 years to see this kind of differentiation goes into the market, meaning that the crops will be at a higher prices than the cultured meat bioreactors.
So when you're
But
producing, when you're producing plant-based meats, do you mix and match the crops? Do you take some protein from chickpeas and some protein from a different one and put them together? And
depend on the brand, but of course.
okay.
And there are many, many brands. It's a red ocean right now. If you want to bring such burger to the supermarket, but I think that now we will see more, or we should see more, companies that are trying to invent in the category, meaning such as Savory, that has the robot chef, which print your burger at your desire, which give you a personalization of your dish. For example, if you ran and if you went to jogging and now you want to eat more protein, you will be able to say, print me a burger with 5 grams more of protein. So this is something that so people will invent in the category of the plant-based. If you want to just take it to the market, a plant-based burger, and put it on the shelf of the rest of the supermarket, or bringing it frozen to the burger chain, I'm not sure yet that you will be able to compete with all the big brand names such as Nestle and other big companies that has all the resources to bring brands to the market.
Are tobacco and cannabis crops used as ingredients to produce plant-based protein alternatives?
I assume so. I think I don't remember what is the hemp that Impossible Food is using. What is the basis for that? But might be.
So as far as the 3D printing, you're saying someday we may get to the point where people could have 3D printers in their house and they buy ingredients and pour different amounts of different ingredients and then produce a burger from that?
Yeah, it will be like Nespresso, meaning you will have different capsules that you can print different kind of food. You will have a capsule for burger, you will have a capsule for tuna fish, you will have a plant-based, all plant-based, you will have a capsule and of something else, meatballs, and the program will adjust the 3D printer to print what you want. And of course, so the combination between the capsule and the software will print you whatever you want. This is something that I foresee also in the home and also in the planes, meaning today the plane are if you want to fly, the airplane is taking a lot of food with it. Think that you have, I don't know, 3 printers that you can print everything that you want in the airplane. At the moment, it's fresh. You can bring it to the customers easily with lower cost, and you can use the place in the airplane much more efficiently.
What do you think the shelf life of plant-based meat alternatives is? Is it short because they're crops and crops don't last that long, or can it be frozen and last a long time?
Yeah, we saw brands that are frozen and can last a long time. I think that will be what you want to do, or what the brands are doing today is that they are giving their plant-based meat the same attributes maybe of the real meat. So if the hamburger shelf life as a frozen one is, let's say, 4 months, I don't know. So the same plant-based alternative will be the same shelf life. This is what is going on today.
Mm-hmm. Um, can it be argued that plant-based meat alternatives consume more resources because you have to grow the crops, and then after the crops are grown, you have to process them in a factory, I suppose, right? Which consumes more land, energy, water, probably. Um,
So GFI had a research on that, and they have came up with a number of, if you want to raise a cattle, you will put 11 times more resources than a plant-based meat alternative to the cattle. So this is also the cattle needs land, needs crops to eat, it needs to be butchered and then to processed into meat. All this and the same will be with the plant-based. You need to grow the crops, you need to harvest, you need to process it and to make. If you combine all the resources, even that cattle is 11 times more, takes 11 times more resources than a plant-based meat.
Right, but theoretically, you could have one cow and get 1,000,000 pounds of meat from that cow if you go the cell-cultivated route.
The same. If you take all the things that you can use in the cow, because sometimes you cannot use some of their inner organs, etc. But if you take the meat that you can use in the cow, as opposed to whatever the same amount of meat that you can use from the alternative, 11 times more.
Right, but you can take a cell out of a cow, and theoretically, from those few cells from one cow, you can produce maybe 1,000,000 pounds of meat.
Definitely, this is the idea. This is the idea that Aleph Farm has. That the idea of all the cultured meat, and this is exactly. I agree with you. Meaning, if you will combine it today, we don't have that cost effectiveness, but in the future, I think in 5 years' time, we will see that the cultured meat will cost as raising a cow. Meaning, because I think two things will happen. One, the cattle prices will go up because you mentioned that crops, the earth, etc., all the resources to raise up a cattle will be higher. And second, the cost of the cultured meat will go down because of the growth factors, because of, to build the second factory will be less than the first factory, etc., etc.
Okay. So maybe we can talk about some of the companies you like and the areas they serve. So I believe you've invested in a plant-based egg company.
Yes, we invested in Egg and Up. And let's start from talking about the egg replacement market as a whole, and then we'll drill down into Egg and Up. So in the egg replacement business, there are the B2C companies and the B2B companies. B2C, I'm calling about a company that wants to bring to the consumer egg replacement to produce omelette, to produce sunny side up, or any other consumer product. So these companies, in most of them, what we see, Just, Hero Egg and others, don't have a clean label because in many times they have methyl cellulose, a highly processed and artificial ingredient that is not clean label. Today, when you are talking to the big companies such as Grupo Bimbo and others, they want to replace their egg in the bakery business, but they are seeing the future and they want to see only a clean label B2B solution with the cost, with the price, cost of course, and all the functionality and the clean label stuff. So we understood the need by these big companies by talking to them, and we span off a technology from another company, from Savory, and we built up a new company by the name of Egg and Up, and which is doing exactly that, B2B to the bakery business clean label, and no methylcellulose, no chlorides, and other E numbers that the big companies don't want to see in their product. So this is one of our companies. We went into also the yogurt and cheese plant-based market, where also we focused on clean label, 5 ingredients, without any ingredients in numbers, etc., that will serve the mostly now European and in the future also the US market of plant-based yogurt and cheese. So this is our investment. And of course, we talked about our plant-based company, Savory It, and our cultured meat company, Aleph Farm, which is heading the premium cut market. So these are the alternative protein. On top of that, we have companies that in other areas of food tech. One is a coloring company that by way of fermentation, producing between yellow and purple and all the shades in between. The company is already doing pilot with the big companies. DSM Ventures invested in them, and a lot of cooperation. And I think this is a major market that came up to the public eye in the last year or so. We saw that in California, they wanted to have a new legislation talking about no more synthetic colors. And this is something that now is in the focus of all the big companies to eliminate the synthetic colors. And in South America, for example, one of the big burger chains announced that they will not have any synthetic colors in the children meals. So we see that the synthetic markets are going out of the market, and you need to replace them by a good solution. We also invested, the company name is Phytalon. Another company is in the packaging area by the name of Tipa. Tipa is doing compostable packaging solution for food, which is very important, because if you're talking about compostable, you need that it will be degrade and compost. But if you're talking about the food, you need that the packaging solution will be very with a high barrier. So not allowing oxygen, heat, and humid to go inside and to the food. So these are two, I would say, completely different needs. One is to be corrosive, and one is to be with a high barrier. And the company with a tremendous amount of IP managed to do that, and it's doing a lot of work with the big companies in terms of packaging solution. Another company that we invested in is Ansa, which is disrupting the coffee business. While you are getting to your office a roasted bean, the company has developed a small roasting machine for your countertop at home or at your office. So it's more eco-friendly, is more cost-effective, because 70% of the price of your roasted bean goes by transportation from the green bean production in Venezuela or other countries to the big roasting companies and back to the consumer. If you can bring the green bean directly to the consumer, you can give it in a lower price and a much better coffee, because the roasted beans start to degrade in taste after the roasting. So these are the main companies that we invested. We did 2 companies in the retail tech, and another company that I think worthwhile to mention is what you do with the waste management in the world. So if you look at food waste, about 30% of our food is going to waste. And what do you do with that? Some solutions are trying to reduce the waste, which is a great solution. But we understand that at the end of the day, they will be organic waste. And this company came up with a solution by way of fermentation to take organic waste and produce lactic acid from that. The lactic acid goes into polylactic acid production, and this is the basis for biopolymers. So basically, we have a circular economy. Organic waste, lactic acid, polylactic acid, packaging solution by biopolymer, composting, and then meaning organic waste, and again going into packaging and circular economy.
Okay. So all these companies are on your website, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
So when you say clean labels, when you're talking about Egg and Up, what exactly does a clean label mean?
Clean label means that the ingredients are not processed, not ultra processed, and there are no E numbers in the product. So, for example, the main problem or the main issue with egg replacement is the methylcellulose. Methylcellulose is an ingredient, a binder, that basically when you heat it, it became solid. Like if you want to do an omelet, right? So you pour a fluid, right? And it become a solid omelet. So, and you do that because there is an ingredient that called methylcellulose that if you eat it up, it becomes or it transforms fluid to solid. Now, if you this methylcellulose is artificial. It has an E number and it's considered to be very, very highly processed or ultra highly processed product and and nobody wants to have that. Egg and Up came up with a solution for the methylcellulose and other E numbers that eliminate that. For example, another example for E number is a synthetic colors. Synthetic colors as a E number that nobody wants to have anymore. For example, yellow or blue. Yellow today is coming either from fermentation, as phytolone is doing, or from curcumin. Curcumin, the orange come from carrot or and other natural resources. The problem with the natural resources is that at a high temperature, they are fading out. And this is a huge problem. If you're going to a high pH and high temperature, it's faded up. And you need to have other solutions such as fermentation-based coloring.
Mm-hmm. For Egg and Up, what is the basic plant that's used to produce Egg and Up?
It's a combination of plant that I cannot disclose. Sorry for that.
Okay. Well, that's a very important product they're putting on the market because in the United States, the price of eggs has gone up about sixfold over the last year. In some cases, you can't find eggs. You can go to Sam's Club sometimes and not find eggs. It seems crazy, but that is the situation. Anyway, one of the last questions for the company involved in natural colors is it important to have more natural colors because the existing ingredients in artificial colors are harmful?
To say harmful, this is something that you need clinical trials to state, but there is a common understanding that nobody wants to have synthetic colors. It's something, and again, as I mentioned before, in California, they wanted to have a legislation eliminating synthetic colors, and in South America, the McDonald's said that they are not going to use any synthetic colors in the kids' meals anymore. So you need to have a solution. So for us, any company or any solution came from the need of the industry. So the industry came and said, we want to replace the egg. We want to replace the methyl cellulose. We want to replace the colors. And this is how then we went and seek the technology that will solve the problem of the need. We are not seeking technologies and then looking forward to, finding a food application for that. We are going from the other way around.
It seems like this natural color company can be successful. A lot of people take pictures of their food. We go to a restaurant now, you take a picture of your food. You never did that 10 years ago, but now we do that. And just like people like coloring their hair differently, they may want to color their food. For a girl's birthday party, they might all want pink food. So it could be designer food now. So that's interesting. Well, anyway, I think we've consumed enough of your time. We really appreciate you spending so much time with us and educating us on the Israeli innovation ecosystem, and particularly in connection with plant-based food. So, Hanan Schneider, thank you very much for speaking to us today.
So thank you very much. And one last data that I would like to put on the table. In Israel, the investment in alternative protein were more than $1 billion, about 40% of the world investment. So the ecosystem in Israel is kicking live, and follow that, please. And
Okay.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, thank you for all the good work you're doing, and thank you again for spending so much time with us today.
Thank you.